Hi, all. If you've been following me, today's topic kind of fills out the place I want to go. I have been clarifying that what is going on is not your fault. Life circumstances, experiences, everything comes together. Genetics. And what I said is, it's not your fault. Most of you seem to have agreed with me. The problem, from my point of view, is I've experienced this week people coming into the office. They tell me that they understand it's not their fault. And what I'd like to ask you, and I'm going to proceed with this, if it's not your fault, why are people coming into the office and apologizing to me? I'm sorry. Hey, hi, Yvonne. Good to hear from you. And let's go on from here. Now, the biggest issue is the fact that if you are sorry, there's some confusion going on here, because what you're saying is, it is my fault. And what I'd like to do today is fill out that space. First of all, let's remind ourselves that even though we call this the bead diet, it is not a diet that is focused on calories. We do want to lose weight. We have a methodology, but first and foremost, it's not a calorie diet. So if you focus on calories in your mind, you're not going to get to the exit that you want to, because of the fact that you're going in the wrong direction. Now, and this is important. The reason in my mind that people say they are sorry is because of the fact that despite the fact that it is not your fault, the more I talk to people, the more I realize they believe they're responsible, that it is your fault. So if in your mind you see yourself as a failure, your expectations are colored by the fact that you're being irrational and illogical because you are holding on to something that misrepresents. Remember, we started off several weeks ago with the understanding that the moment you said, I want to weigh less, you committed yourself to change your behavior. In thinking about this, I was reading some stuff and I came across the Wright brothers. You know, they're the ones who flew the first plane. Now, people thought they were nuts. And the reason they thought these guys were nuts was because no one could imagine someone flying. It was irrational. It was illogical. It had never happened before. And so therefore, people looked at them and said, you're crazy. But they had a vision. And this is what we have to look at Because if you are feeling sorry, you're dealing with stuff that's not going to help you. If I see myself as bad, I perceive other people are going to have to impact on me based upon the fact that I'm bad. And so I'm going to have to alter my behaviors, etc., because of the fact, and this, here we go again, they can't have a vision because they're in the wrong ballpark. Most all discoveries come from mistakes. And therefore, the people who've made those mistakes have had a vision. And their behavior was directed towards fulfilling the vision that they had, despite the fact that no one else around them seemed to perceive what they did. I'm going to stop for a minute and put in a piece of Dr. Schwartz. Somewhere around Christmas, I was talking to some people while I was in Florida, and someone said to me, "How much do you weigh?" "Why exactly?" And I said, "Why are you asking me?" They said, "Well, you're in the diet business, and I was interested in what you weighed." And I said, "I weigh about 240 pounds. Now, if you saw me, you would not think that I was overweight." I got on the scale that night, and sure enough, I weighed about 240 pounds. I'm not happy with that. And I thought about going back on our program. But because of situations and circumstances medically in my life, it wasn't appropriate from a time point of view to go on the program. And so I had a vision. I conjured it up. And what I said is, I know the program works. I know the basic concepts. I'm not interested in 15 pounds minimum every 30 days and the regimen of the program. And therefore, since I'm not, I'm going to modify my own behavior. I did just that. And between Christmas and June, in 6 months, I took off 38 pounds. How did I do it? I went to stage 2, phase 2 of our program, and said, if I modify the program, I certainly will not lose at that rate, but it'll change my lifestyle. I'll be able to continue doing what it is that I was doing. And yes, I'll answer you so that the mystery is gone. I had developed neuropathy from the cancer that I had had back about 12, 13 years ago. And yes, I'm a survivor. And it had impacted on my circulation. And so I was having a neuropathic problem. And therefore, these thoughts came to me. Now, this is what's important. And this is what you have to begin to understand. The fact that it's not your fault is one thing. The fact that you feel sorry is truly problematic. And one of the things that I remembered when I was in elementary school, and for those of you who know my history, I have attention deficit hyperactive disorder, and I was dyslexic. I tried very hard. It was very, very difficult. And I had a number of teachers who were not negative, who were sensitive to me. And simplistically, what they said was, Charles, you have a problem. It's very real. And we're going to do it again and again and again. We're not going to become emotional about it, but we're going to do it again and again and again. We're not going to be emotional about it until you get it right. At first, I thought it was a punishment. And then I began to realize that it was not my fault. And remember, this was all before World War II. Just think of the fact that I was graduated from college, 60 some odd years ago. It was a different world. And here were teachers who were sensitive to me saying, you're going to do it again and again and again, no emotion, until you get it right. When we are faced with something like that, even in our present society, you have to separate out the fact of, one, what is your vision? What is your goal? Some of the teachers, and we're talking elementary school now, we're talking second grade, third grade, try to help me understand that even though I thought I was a failure, it was not my fault, but I had gotten as far as I had gotten using my abilities outside of and beyond my ADD, which they had no understanding of what that was at that point in time. They thought I was a kid who couldn't sit still, couldn't pay attention. And no one understood the dyslexia. I was just a kid who couldn't read. I could do lots of things. And one particular teacher in second grade sent me out to the office to get something. And while I was gone, she put the class on notice. If I catch any of you picking on Charles, they're going to have to answer to me. I was not aware. One of the funny parts of that was this girl in class, she sat in front of me, and in my mind, her name was Martha, and I would call her Martha Lima Bean. She was always trying to be nice to me, and I didn't know how to deal with it, and that's when I named her Martha Lima Bean. I really liked her. She pulled me aside and shared with me that while I was gone, the teacher had put the class on notice. It helped because in those days, teachers had powers, let's call it, authority, to deal with problems much differently than they are able to today. And she sat me down and she said to me, look at all the things that you're able to do. They say you're stupid. You're not stupid. You have a problem, and we are going to do it again and again and again until you get it right. You're going to see that as a punishment. So before we move ahead, let me ask you a question. Do you want to be able to read? And I said, of course. Can you read? And I said, no. Well, if you can't read, how are you going to be able to have what you really want? And I said, I don't know. And she said to me, I hear you, and I'm going to say it to you again. Without emotion, we are going to do it again and again and again until you get it right. Here I am today, people. The residue of what I'm sharing with you is with me. Unless you have complete amnesia, the experiences you have under some circumstances like that, you have to learn to deal with them. I'm going to tell you one more part of the story because it impacts on me and hopefully to you today. What I'm sharing with you persisted until I was in 5th grade. My classroom teacher was out, and I figured this out after the fact. And she left a note for the substitute teacher saying, don't call on Schwartz. He's unable to read. It will embarrass him. Well, the sub must have forgotten because she called on me, and as miraculous as it seems to be, I actually read. The day went on. The following day was school. The teacher comes in, sees a note from the sub, said, I don't know what you're talking about. I had Schwartz read for me, and he did fine. She took me down to the office. In those days, teachers could leave, and sat me outside the principal's office, went in and spoke to the principal, came out of the principal's office, said, wait here, and left. About 2 hours later, my parents showed up. And I'll never forget my mother looking at me and said, it doesn't stop with you, does it? Every Monday and Thursday, we have a problem. And she and my father went into the principal's office. Remember, this was a different world. About a half hour later, and I could hear voices in there, but I had no idea what the conversation was. Out we came. We went into the car, and my mother turned around and said, now you've really done it. And my father said, they have suspended you from school. The principal said, you are like Al Capone. You have a criminal mind, because any child who would fool the school that he couldn't read needs to be seen by a psychiatrist. My parents took me to a psychiatrist. I couldn't come back to school until I had a psychiatric evaluation. After 5 or 6 sessions with the psychiatrist, and I was there when he shared with my parents, he said, your son is not lying. What he experienced is real. I don't understand it, but I am going to write a letter demanding that he be reinstated in school. And that was not the end of the story. That's the beginning. They had to take me back. And I don't know if you're aware of it, but all public buildings have doors that open outward. So you can lock out, but you can't get locked in. Well, they took my desk. They put it out in the hall behind the door so that I could look through the crack in the door, but I could not have sat in the classroom. But I could look through that crack so I wouldn't bother or whatever else. And I had the rest of the year where I spent my time in the hall while the class lessons were going on with kids running up and down the hall, making fun of me. Those are not experiences anybody wants to have. It didn't endear me to school either in those days. But what choice do I have? Now remember, the principal said, and I'll never forget that word, he is the most insidious, big word, huh? Student I've seen. He's going to grow up to be like Al Capone. Now, here is the key. The teacher back in second grade gave me a vision. That teacher said I was competent. I had value. I could do it. I didn't know how to implement it, but the thought was always there. And that's what got me through. Her saying to me, without emotion, and she said to me that I should not be emotional about it. So make sure I'm clear with you. You're going to do it again and again and again until you get it right. So let's focus on today. I brought you to the point. We've talked about trauma. We've talking about the fact that I could take alcohol out of your life and you'd be fine. I could take drugs if you were a drug addict out of your life and you would be fine. That I cannot take food out of your life because you can't live without it, so you have to learn to live with it. And let's put it together with the other thought. You're going to do it again and again and again until you get it right and not be emotional about it. Food is something that you have to have in your life. When we were hunters and gatherers, our bodies learned to store food as fat for the periods of time between when food was available. Most of you, if not all of you, have tried to diet before. We've changed the ball game. But I have to, and that's why you brought me into your life, I have to change your thinking. Part of it is what I just said. You're going to do it again and again and again and again until you get it right. If, and this is the big point, what's your vision? What is it that you want? What I have been getting is I'm sorry. What are you sorry about? You're an adult. You made a decision, and we see them all the time, and you're unable for whatever the reason. And these experiences that I just shared with you are critical in that because they form our thinking. Unconsciously, that woman who said, I'm sorry, doesn't believe in her thinking that it's not her fault. For whatever the reasons are, I shouldn't do it. I shouldn't do it. I shouldn't do it. And then you're tired, you're upset, you're angry, and you break down and you go off. And then guilt, and you feel sorry because your belief is different than your goal. So, number one, and this is what I want you to focus on. You have a choice, but you don't realize you have a choice because you're stuck in your belief that you're responsible and you're the failure. I said to you, it's not your fault. Isn't it the same as the fly who is pounding against the window, pounding against the window, pounding against the window, and persists again and again? And all the fly had to do, instead of flying into the window, to go to the left when the door opened and would be free. But the vision wasn't there. And I say we have to change to put it there. You are not at fault. Your history puts you at fault because you believe that your history is everything that exists, because it's happened again and again that you said no and you broke down and gave in. And remember, 2/3 of the people are going to have weight problems. 1/3 of the people genetically are not going to have a problem. Now, if 2/3 of the people are going to have a problem, and you're among them, and your belief is that you are responsible, then we're going to have a problem again and again and again and again. Now, all of us have habits. Those of you who are overweight, the habit is to use food to deal with the emotional baggage you carry from being seemingly incapable of saying no. You try again and again and again, and each time you don't succeed, you attribute it to you. Now, the only way I would agree with you is if you drop your thinking, the habits that you've developed over your lifetime. If you drop those habits, and by doing so, you change your belief. I wonder if there is any one of you out there who doesn't know in their mind, based upon whatever, that our program works. That my promising you 15 pounds, only fat, etc., is absolute. It works. And yet, here you are, struggling. If you were doing the program, you wouldn't be struggling. So you're not doing the program. And so you say, it's your fault. And we dismiss then all of the psychology that is involved in creating these habits that you persist in doing. Now, let's start changing the world, your world. The mere fact that you're here says to me, I know what I want. I want to weigh less. And that's why I'm here. But I'm struggling. And why are you struggling? You're struggling because the power of food is incredibly powerful. And when your emotions enter into the situation, you give in. So let's change that. I'll give you an example. I want to keep it simple, and I don't want to belabor the issue. If you don't believe that AccuWeight works, then you're not doing yourself any favors being here. AccuWeight works. Now, I'm sorry, which means you feel that you are not doing the program properly, because if you were doing the program properly, it would be working. So even though it's not your fault, you feel sorry. Now, what does that mean? It means you've taken what I have been taught. You're going to do it again and again and again until you get it right. That's a misrepresentation. I'll give you an example. Something is happening and you see yourself going to the pantry to get something. The reason you're going to the pantry to get something is to satisfy some urge that you have, having to do with those voices that I told you that say, I want, and will not shut up until you address that want. Now, here's the first thing I want you to do. Those of you who have some, for example, go to the pantry and I'm going to take out some potato chips. What I want you to do is I want you to put I think they call them stick-it notes, and put on it, do something else, and put it on the potato chips. And each time you go to the pantry to satisfy that whatever, there's that stick-it, post-it, and it says, try something else. The fact that you went to the pantry, let's face it, it's a habit because you do it again and again and again. And you do it to satisfy some need, but it's not in line with the goal that you have set. And so you're sorry. And we go through this process and it doesn't help. Now, with a post-it note there, it says do something else. Now stop. I know what I'm doing, and don't deny that you want those potato chips or whatever. Be honest with yourself. I want them because I know if I have them, it's going to ease this emotion that I'm feeling that I want to distance myself from. And I even acknowledge when I'm doing it that I feel like a failure because it's giving me comfort, but it's not getting me what I really want. And how do I know that? Why are you sitting here? If you didn't want to weigh less, to lose weight, then you're really not sitting here, unless you have some incredible motivation having to do with something that is totally illogical. So instead of fighting, stop, acknowledge, because you know what you're going to do. And what I'm asking you to do is each time, every single day, and I want you to start tomorrow, I want you to do one thing tomorrow that will help you achieve what we're talking about. And what we're talking about is it's not your fault. And I don't want you to be sorry, because sorry says you're incompetent. You can't do it. And that's not true. I fit into that category when, as I shared with you a little while ago, I altered my behavior consciously while I was in Florida. I said, it's not time for me to do the program because with all the stuff that's going on now, it's going to overwhelm me. Going into therapy was not going to help me. And the reason therapy was not going to help me, it might teach me things in terms of who and how and why and what I do things, but I wasn't going to lose an ounce. So what I did is I took what our program has taught us. For those of us who've been successful, and many of you have been successful, but the problem with that success is you didn't follow through. And many of you are coming back because you're saying it's the only thing that works. And that's why I'm doing it. So I said to myself, let's rework phase 2. Now, what is phase 2? Number 1, phase 2 says, I can, because I wouldn't be here phase 2. Remember, I've reached my goal if I go to phase 2. I wouldn't be here except I have succeeded, which means I'm capable of succeeding. Number 2, I'm not going to be doing it the way phase 1 is designed because I will not be, based upon me and where my head is, I'm not going to be successful. Number 3, I must change my behavior because only by changing my behavior can I be successful. And so what I did was I took what we do and turned it upside down. For me, and I'm only talking about me, how I do it. And I do it this way because it works for me. What I've told many of you in the past, when you achieve goal, I can give you the best maintenance program in the entire world. And if you do that maintenance program, which is the best in the entire world, you'll never have a weight problem again. And you know something? That's the truth. But here's the problem. I don't know whether it's going to be a week or 2 weeks or a month or 3 weeks or 3 months. You're going to get out of bed in the morning and say, why am I doing this maintenance program that Dr. Schwartz gave me when it's not how I want to live? I'm living the way Dr. Schwartz told me I should live. In order to achieve my goal, I've become invisible in my own life. I'm living my life the way somebody else wants me to live it. And I took that into my head and I said, if the concepts work, I have to work them. They have to fit into my lifestyle. And that's what I did. And I'm going to tell you exactly what I did. I changed the way I eat. I decided that except on special occasions, I would go to phase 2, where the hours are noon to 8 o'clock, not 12 to 6, and that I would only eat 1 meal a day. I would have dinner every night. And that I would have maybe some salad or a fruit during the day to get me through. December to January, February, March, April, May, June. 6 months. Eating one meal a day, being conscious of what I was doing. I lost 38 pounds. I was still doing the program, but differently. I put on the beads. I did the program the way I just described it to you. And I stopped getting on the scale. Once a month. That was difficult because I was in no man's land. Now, number one, you can do it. Number two, you have to change your thinking. Number three, you have to believe that what you want, what you truly want, is what you truly want it. Now, be very careful here. You do not need to justify what it is that you want. You just have to have a vision. You have to make you the most important person in your life. I didn't say the most important person in the world. I said the most important person in your life. So if you're sitting here now, your vision is you want your body to change. And you have to make changes to do it. And this is the important thing. In order to make those changes, you cannot be ambivalent. I just had a woman come back from vacation. In between, she has not reached her goal as yet, but I reworked phase 2 for her on vacation. She gained 2 pounds. She was ecstatic because she enjoyed herself. She was able to look forward to dinner every single night. And she gained 2 pounds. What's that going to add? Another week to her program? The key is, she said, Dr. Schwartz, I feel so wonderful because I was proud of myself doing what I was doing because I was conscious of what it is that I was doing and why I was doing it. I was happier with me for the first time in a long time for acting and behaving like the person I wished I was. And when I came back, and that's why I'm talking to you, I'm so much happier with myself, and I still have 40 pounds to go, but it's going to be easier for me to do it now because I realize I'm doing it for me. And I don't care what anybody else says. And the reason I don't care is you've taught me that the people who criticize me have an axe to grind. It makes no difference what it is. They're interested in them because my journey in weight loss is impacting on them. Otherwise, they'd say, terrific, it's working for you. It's great. But I was always doing things without my own awareness. So what I've got to do now, I'm going back on the program, Dr. Schwartz, but I'm going back on the program recognizing that if I do things that remind me all the time that I'm doing it for me, it's making me happy, it's working for me, I'm going to be able to do this. And I also recognize now, because of the vacation I took, that you're going to help me design a lifestyle to keep the weight off into the future. So, where do we go from here? What can you do today or tomorrow, if we're going to start it tomorrow, to recognize that you have to be proactive? Now, one of the things that I would recommend to you is to forget about anything other than what's your vision. How do you want to see yourself? I don't care why. You don't have to justify it. I want you to recognize there are going to be detours in the road. And those detours have always in the past caused a problem. And you feel sorry, you feel regret, you feel shame, you feel whatever. So, what are you going to do? Every single day, what I want you to do is think of something when the opportunity presents itself. Do something proactive. The other thing that I want you to do is to recognize that, I've told you before, all disease comes from some underlying source, an imbalance. This is a machine. It's your body, but it's a machine. It knows how to fix itself, but you have to give it the tools to fix itself. And the more you use the tools to fix yourself, you're going to like the self that you are becoming. And the more you like the self that you are becoming, the more you're going to be proactive in doing things that like the self that you are becoming. And what begins to happen is you begin to create new habits which work for you to give you the ability to like the self that you are becoming by becoming the self that makes you feel good. Just one other thing I'd like to inject. All of these behaviors that we have when we deviate from the program are done for emotional and habitual reasons. You're fully aware of what you're doing. And there is an imbalance going on inside your body. So one of the things that I want to recommend to all of you, two things, not one. I want you all to start taking a good probiotic, and I want all of you to start taking digestive enzymes. And the reason is, what science has taught us is that when there are imbalances in the digestive process, the body craves for certain things that are not in your best interest. That's physiological. And if you choose to communicate with me, I will spell it out for you, but that's going to be a new behavior for you as well. The fact that you're here says to me what you really want. What you do is impacted by these old habits. Now, I used to be a psychologist. The reason I say I used to be is I don't practice any longer. AccuWeight is where I am now. But I'm still trying to use what I've learned as a psychologist. And one of the things is to reach out and ask. This is a situation that until you are back in control of yourself and liking the self that you are, it's difficult to do alone. If you're a member of the program and you come into the office, we can have these discussions with every way in. But there's another methodology. It's called email. It's called text. It's called telephone. You hired me to be your Sherpa guide, to lead you through the forest. How many of you who are struggling have used that tool? How many of you believe that it's shameful, that you feel sorry, and you don't want to reveal that? You know that you're overweight. I know that you're overweight. That's not the problem. The problem is that you don't want to be overweight. Now think about that. And you haven't been successful in dealing with that. You now have a program that works, but you're not working the program because you're not being proactive. What stops you from sending me an email? What stops you from sending me a text? What stops you from leaving a message on my machine? Ask yourself. And the answer is very simple. You've developed a history, a habitual behavior, which says, I'm doing the best I can, and I'll continue to do the best I can, but I'm not going to change my behavior. And I'm not going to change my behavior because I'm comfortable in doing it the way I'm doing it. I don't feel good about it, but I'm comfortable. A little longer today, I have some questions. Oh, here are my glasses. Oh, my number is 973-243-0777. It's a machine. I'm the only one responsible for that machine. If you call 973-243-0777, the machine will answer. If I'm there, I will answer it. If I'm not there, leave your name and a telephone number, and I will call you back. And if you think you're bothering me, then you've attributed it to me, something that doesn't exist. Because I have always been there for you to answer your questions and to help you succeed, because that's what keeps me going. Questions. I'm so mad at myself. I took a few months off for vacation, and events put me on a ton of weight. Is there any way to accelerate my weight loss now? Beautiful question today. Now, first and foremost, I want to tell you that this woman said she put on a ton of weight. You ready? 7 pounds. She had a wonderful vacation. A ton of weight. Tell me, if you do the program, What's a ton of weight? Her 7 pounds? An extra 2 weeks on the program. Did she enjoy herself? Yes. How do I do something to accelerate the program? She hasn't been doing anything wrong. She was on track to lose weight. She went on vacation, used our protocol for vacation, and now all she's adding is another 2 weeks. Terrific. Great. Stop thinking about accelerating or changing. You're doing it right. Do it for yourself. Feel good about it. Question, is there a limit to how much sugar-free Jell-O I can have? The answer is yes. You can have 1 box of homemade, not pre-made in the store, sugar-free Jell-O per day. You can also go on Google, I'm not sure where else you can go, and you can get something called Simply Delish. It's a Jell-O that does not have the chemicals, so it's all natural, and you can go online and you can even exceed the 1 box per day. I'm on medication that cleans my system and is only 300 calories a day. Should I make any modifications of the program? Now, here is my answer. And this is very important. This is not a calorie program. So her thinking has to be modified because she's thinking out of the box. The only issue that I am concerned about is the blood sugar issues, lightheadedness, or something like that. And there are things that we can do. And this is why you pick up the telephone. She didn't want to give me any greater information as to what she was doing or why she was doing it. And that's perfectly legitimate. And I will recommend behaviors that would fit into answering her question. And obviously, I would do the same for you as well. Last question. For the first time, I'm only a few pounds away from my goal. I'm really excited, but I'm really scared. I've worked so hard. Can you tell me a bit more about phase 2? I think it's terrific. And for women, this is what I tell you. First of all, we use the scale because I cannot measure the fat in your body. And fat loss is critical for us. The shape of your body is going to change dramatically. I told you that phase 2 has to be a personalized creation. It has to fit into your lifestyle. And we also have to address something which I'm not going to this evening. It's something called weight set point. So my recommendation to any and all of you, when you're close, pick a clothing size. When you get into that size of clothing, you have 1 or 2 more weeks on the program, and then we go to phase 2. Achieve your goal. Get into the size clothing that you're happy with. And once we've done that, let's create together a lifestyle that fits you. Thank you for being here with me, and do something positive.